Have you ever found yourself wandering through the silent, cold labyrinth of human relationships and suddenly stopped to ask, why do people hate me? This question is not just a passing thought. It is a persistent emotional parasite that feeds on your self-worth and pulls you into a suffocating abyss during those long, sleepless nights. Perhaps it started today with a colleague's indifferent tone that made your heart sink, like a stone in dark water. Or maybe it was that stinging moment in a group chat when your message was the only one left unread. A digital silence that felt louder than a scream. Maybe you saw a photo on social media where everyone looked happy and connected, while you sat alone, feeling like an uninvited ghost in your own life. This feeling of being disliked is a universal human trauma, but to truly overcome it, we must first dismantle its very structure and understand why our brains are so incredibly vulnerable to the gaze of others. To comprehend this, we must look back tens of thousands of years. For our ancestors, social exclusion was not just an emotional bruise. It was a literal death sentence. Being cast out of the tribe in a wilderness full of predators meant the end of survival. Therefore, our brains evolved to perceive social rejection as physical pain. When you feel disliked, the same part of the brain that reacts when you are physically wounded lights up in an alarm. The reason your chest aches when you feel rejected is that your primitive brain has declared a state of emergency, thinking you are about to die in the wild. But here is the vital truth that you must internalize. Modern society is not the prehistoric savannah. Being disliked in an office, on an app, or in a social circle does not mean you will be eaten by a lion. Your brain is using an ancient, outdated alarm system for a modern, non-lethal situation, and recognizing this evolutionary error is the first step toward true emotional freedom. The first psychological barrier we must dismantle is rejection sensitivity, a cognitive distortion where the brain begins to overinterpret minor neutral actions as deliberate personal rejection. If an acquaintance passes you by in a hallway without saying hello, most people think they must be in a hurry. But someone trapped in rejection sensitivity thinks they saw me and chose to ignore me because they hate me. This is a dangerous hallucination. There is a 90% chance that the person you think hates you is actually just overwhelmed by the crushing weight of their own life. They are worrying about their bills, their health, or their own deep-seated insecurities. They simply do not have the emotional bandwidth to actively hate you. We often mistake other people's exhaustion for their enmity, meaning you are suffering from a war that the other person isn't even fighting. Sometimes the dislike you feel from others has absolutely nothing to do with you at all. This is the mechanism of projection. When someone dislikes you for no apparent reason, you have likely become an uncomfortable mirror for their own suppressed shadows. If you are confident, a person struggling with deep-seated insecurity will find your presence irritating. If you are honest, a person living a lie will feel threatened by your transparency. They are not hating you. They are hating the reflection of what they lack. Your success reminds them of their failure, and your freedom reminds them of their chains. In this sense, being hated is often an unintended compliment, because it means you possess a quality so potent that it forces others to confront their own deficiencies. Their hatred is merely a defensive wall they build to protect their fragile ego from the light you radiate. In the world of social dynamics, there is an immutable law of numbers called the 2-7-1 rule. No matter how perfectly you behave or how kind you are, in any group of 10 people, one person will dislike you for no reason at all. They might hate the pitch of your voice, or the way you walk, or perhaps you simply remind them of someone who hurt them in the past. Conversely, 2 people will always be on your side, loving you for exactly who you are, flaws and all. The remaining 7 people are neutral. They don't really care about you one way or the other. Ask yourself why we spend 99% of our emotional energy trying to win over that one person who hates us and the 7 who don't care, while completely neglecting the 2 people who truly cherish us. This is a catastrophic failure of emotional economy, where we pour our most precious resource into a black hole that will never give anything back. It is time to practice decoupling, a concept rooted in the separation of tasks. Whether someone likes you or dislikes you is their task, not yours. You have control over your kindness and your integrity, but how those actions are received in the mind of another person is a territory you cannot govern. Trying to force someone to like you is an act of subtle aggression and an attempt to manipulate their free will. When you stop taking responsibility for other people's emotions, the heavy chains around your neck begin to snap. You are not a politician running for office who needs a majority approval rating to exist. You are a sovereign individual, and the moment you put down the burden of needing to be understood, you become the most powerful version of yourself. Modern human relationships have become like digital algorithms, where people live in filter bubbles, only wanting to interact with those who perfectly echo their own values. If you are being disliked, it might simply be a case of algorithmic friction, where you are a piece of data that doesn't fit into their narrow worldview, just as we don't call a radio broken, because it produces static on the wrong frequency. We shouldn't call ourselves flawed because we clash with someone else's frequency. Friction is a natural result of movement, so if you are moving and growing, you will inevitably rub some people the wrong way. A stationary object has no friction, and a person who is liked by everyone is often a person who isn't moving at all. Being disliked is a badge of honor and the cost of entry for authenticity. People who are universally loved are often social chameleons, who erase their own edges to avoid making anyone uncomfortable, meaning they have no enemies but also no true self. When you start to speak your truth and set firm boundaries, you are drawing a line in the sand, and those who find that line inconvenient will react with hostility. But that hostility is the clearest evidence that you have emerged as a distinct, solid existence. Many of us suffer from the good person syndrome, believing that if we are perfect enough, we can bypass the possibility of being hated. This is a dangerous illusion because perfectionism is just a high-end suit of armor we wear to hide our fear of being seen. If you keep carving away parts of your soul to satisfy others, you will eventually wake up as an empty shell. Your value is not a variable that changes based on someone else's opinion. It is a constant decided the moment you were born. The question of why people hate me must ultimately be replaced by the question of how much I love myself. The hatred of others is just a distortion caused by their own blurred vision or their own internal storms, and it cannot diminish your intrinsic value by even 1%. Step out of the prison of others' eyes, because beyond their gaze, there are people waiting to love your essence and celebrate your clumsy moments. You are not a dish created to suit every person's palate. You are a complex, grand masterpiece. Some will look at you and see only chaos, because they lack the depth to understand your abstract beauty, while others will turn away because they are blinded by the intensity of your colors. That is a tragedy of their insight, not a fault of your creation. Stop seeking shelter in the eyes of those who don't see you and listen to the soul, finally resonating at its true frequency. You don't need to be loved by the world. You only need to be at peace with the person you see in the mirror. Your worth is anchored in the solid rock of your own character, not in the shifting sands of social media comments or office gossip. Do not fear being disliked, for it is the clearest evidence that you have emerged as a one-of-a-kind existence in this world. It is enough to be a good person to those who cherish you, and to the one person you will spend the most time with, which is yourself. Today, let go of the emotional luggage that doesn't belong to you, and walk forward with the confidence of someone who knows their own value is non-negotiable. You are enough exactly as you are, and the world's approval is a prize you no longer need to chase.